Welcome to the Refinement Challenge. My name is Beth, I will be your host, and on this podcast we unlock life lessons, relationship advice, and mindsets that refine ourselves to be the best we can be. Let's dive right in. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Refinement Challenge. I'm so glad to be back. I've taken about probably a 2-week break at this point. I do apologize for that. I had a lot of things going on, but I'm ready to get back into it and give you another episode. So let's just dive right in with what we're going to be talking about in this episode. I've titled this episode, The Power of Composure, and I want to talk a little bit more about what that means for me specifically. So the easy definition of composure would just be the state of calmness, or the way someone can react really grounded within a conversation. That's remaining composed. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. It's just remaining calm and how we keep in control of our emotions when we're in a really difficult circumstance. Over the years, I've definitely met and been in the presence of a lot of wonderful and different personalities. However, I have found myself on multiple occasions needing to educate people about this topic, so I figured that I would make an episode to break it down a little bit and discuss it further. So for this episode in particular, I want to knuckle down on 3 certain topics that in which are relationship and situationship composure, how we should handle and act when things go sour, and what composure can unlock for us in the future. Now, let me go into further detail when I'm talking about the idea of relationship and situationship composure. Obviously, there are 2 separate topics when we talk about this, when you're in a situationship and when you're in a relationship, versus when things are going sour and the other person seems to be pulling away. Composure within a relationship and building a relationship and the possibilities of turning that situationship into the relationship is a completely different episode on its own that in which I want to talk about in a whole 30-minute episode. But I want to talk about when another person starts pulling away. And I'm not talking about when you are both fighting for the relationship and when you're both communicating and discussing it to fix something. I'm talking about when someone pulls away and breaks your heart, or when somebody just says, "No, I don't want it anymore," or when someone plays you. I feel like we've all had our fair share of this circumstance. I certainly have as well, and I want to bring this tactic on the table for discussion because I believe it is possibly the best way you can deal with something like this, with a heartbreak or with the realization that you've been used, or even just knowing that the two of you are just breaking apart and your heart is hurting and you're broken and you're hurting and there's so many things that you want to say to that person. But my tip for you is silence. And I'm not saying it's easy, it's really difficult. There's so many things that are boiling inside your blood that you want to write down on a page and send to that person. But I advise you so wholeheartedly to not do that. It is not going to change anything. I'm talking about the type of person that leaves you on red for 5 hours with no proper reason, the person who just obviously isn't interested, someone in the talking stage even, or even just you pretending that 2 seconds of attention is validation from that person. Someone who has obviously used you, someone who just isn't interested anymore. And it is heartbreaking when you definitely fall for that person, but it really does give you more power if you don't say anything at all. And I'll get further into that. Let's take a step back from our feelings on this subject and let's kind of transport over to that person that we're grieving over. Let's kind of step into their shoes, if we will. We've left this person on red. We've left this person undelivered. We've declined meetups. We've lied. We've done whatever. We've done that for a reason, right? Because we're not interested. So what makes us think that sending a paragraph or rousing on the phone about how heartbroken you are or how mad you are or how sad you are is going to change anything? That person is very obviously open about how they feel. I'm not even saying that what they're doing is good, because it's not. It's ghosting and it's nasty and it's putting someone else through a lot of pain. But it's not going to change anything. It's going to make you look like an idiot. And you can't argue with me that hookup culture and players aren't prevalent in our society. Sadly, it's come to a circumstance where that is the normal, and it's really heartbreaking that is the normal. But now that we are aware of that, we need to know that there are always going to be people out there that want nothing but sex, want nothing but a little bit of excitement for a bit, and then ghost you or play you. And I've always preached to people that that type of behavior shouldn't be put on a pedestal. There have even been circumstances for me specifically where I have been in relationships where this has happened. Relationships. I'm not even joking when I say that. I'd be lying to you if I was sitting on the phone with you on the couch having a bestie session with, a glass of Moscato in my hand saying, I don't understand what everyone's problem is. I've had the best record with men. I've had the best record with women. I've had the best track with my relationship history. Because I haven't. I've been cheated on. I've been played. I've been lied to. I've been people's rebounds, for God's sake. I've literally had someone prioritize Dungeons and Dragons over me. I've had people ghost me for 5 weeks. So it's really important that in this day and age, we have somewhat of a tactic on how to cope with that. And I can damn well tell you now, it is not chasing them and it is not messaging them at 2 a.m. saying you miss them. Does anyone remember the quote I said in episode 2 when we were talking about confidence? And I said, if hurting me does not hurt you, you do not love me, you're using me. Exactly. They aren't going to change, and they aren't going to put any more effort into you than what they were before because they don't like you. And once you get over that part, you realize that the longer you're continuing to chase this person who is giving you these half-assed replies, making zero effort to see you, making you wait around for them, leaving you undelivered for 5 hours, the longer you prolong meeting someone who would not dream of losing you. And I'm not saying it's easy. It hurts a lot. It hurts so much. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. And I've definitely been there, like I said, but you have to do it. You just have to. And in the future, in a new episode, I'll be making a 30-minute ramble on tactics you can use to heal yourself when you are dealing with a player and when you're dealing with a breakup, coming from an emotional person myself. But for now, I will give you one singular quote. Hurt in private. Heal in silence and shine in public. And that statement can be a little bit debatable. And what I'm not telling you to do is hurt completely by yourself. What I am telling you to do is hurt around people who you can trust with your life. People who you know won't be starting rumors, won't be spreading all of this gossip to other people. I'm talking about your family. Really, really, really close friends. For me personally, it has always been my mum, and I now have my wonderful partner who I can spread every single thing about. And I can talk to him about anything. The same with my mum. I can talk to him about something so big that it'll affect me for years from now, all the way down to, I don't know, a TikTok of a lonely frog that I'm crying about over the phone. The most important thing to recognize is it's not going to do anything at all if you are posting about your loneliness, posting about your sadness, your anger, all of those horrible emotions on the internet. Especially with a player. And you know why? Because I bet that player is probably chilling with his mates going,
Oh, yo, dog, look at what she posted on the media. Oh, she's so in love with me. Oh, that's so funny.
Like, what do you think that's going to do? You think he's going to come crawling back to you? No, he's got another girl around his shoulder the next day. And I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. And you know what the absolute best thing about that is when you give him silence and no contact at all, fucking block him, fucking remove him as a follower. I don't fucking care as long as you're not talking to him or interacting with him in any way whatsoever. that is going to sizzle in his brain so fucking much. Because he expects it at this point. He or she, to be honest, he or she expects it at this point. Because it feeds into their ego. What we're doing by blocking off any communication and giving absolute silence is they are not getting any sort of closure at all. And why the fuck should they? You know what is so powerful about this whole tactic? When that person isn't getting that closure because they've done you so fucking dirty, they've done you so bad, they've really fucked you over and you've given nothing but silence to them, their insecurities start showing because they're looking for validation.
Hey yo bro, why this girl looks so fucking happy? There's no like I miss you text, there's nothing on her social media. Was I just like not fucking good enough for her? What the fuck?
And that serves them right. And at this point, you could still be grieving. And you could want to reply to them so badly. But I advise you, when you pull the silence card, the power is in your hands. And the following quote makes me laugh so much because it's happened to me so often. And I made a TikTok about it. I made a TikTok about it and I just find it so funny. It is, quote unquote, before you text him, just think how stupid it'll look as a screenshot reposted on Messenger. Boom, skiddity boom, my dear. I think that is all I need to express. I think that quote speaks for itself and I feel like you'll now go, actually no, this isn't a good idea. You know what? I might actually listen to my girl Beth. And you should already be listening to me. I'd be surprised if you weren't because I got some good advice up in my noggin. But I think that's the best way I can explain dating and relationships and situationships when they go nasty, because you're leaving with your head high, you've got nothing to regret, you've shown no vulnerability that can be laughed at behind your back, and you've got the power in your hands. The power of the sun in the palm of my hand. If you get the reference, good job. It's not a really difficult one to get. Okay, next topic. Remember when I was talking about the ideology of hurting in private and healing in silence? I want to talk about that a little bit more, and I want to bring up the topic of sharing everything online, sharing everything about your life online. That is a very dangerous game because the amount of people out there hoping and wishing for you to fail makes it not worth it. Because not only when you do all this in silence do you have the power in your hand, people also don't know what to attack. And that gives you such a big advantage. I personally have been in about 1 or 2 friendships where everything I would put on the table for discussion that was somewhere near vulnerable was spoken behind my back, was bitched about behind my back. And so it gets to a point in life where you need to protect yourself because you don't know who to trust. People are so fake these days that it's not worth it. And the one thing that all of these people I've spoken about, the fake friends, the players, the assholes, the one thing that they all have in common is they are all looking for a reaction out of you. I was raised in an environment where I was mentored at quite a young age to deal with drama maturely and civilly. When it comes to arguments and confrontations, especially with loved ones, I love to approach them with the mindset of fixing them and not escalating the situation. Though I do acknowledge that it does come to a point, like I was expressing in episode 1, when I was talking about protecting our peace, that there does come a point where you need to walk away when it is obvious that the other person doesn't want to cooperate. But for God's sake, do not meet their level of immaturity. When it comes to a point that you guys are having an argument and one person has to come out of nowhere and nitpick the other person's appearance or something that they do that has nothing to do with confrontation, you've immediately lost. It's the same with raising your voice. It is the same with swearing. It is the same with threatening violence. They all fit under the same category. And there is no point in putting topics up in this argument or in this conversation or confrontation that is just going to hurt the other person. Because at that point, you've lost. And you are completely in control of what you say. And I don't care who else tells me that. You have different pathways in front of you, and you have complete control on which road you go down. That is no one else's control but yours. And if you choose the sign that directs you down to the road that says, point out their insecurities, point out their trauma, point out anything about them to hurt them, you've already lost. Because what exactly are you fighting for anymore? If you're resulting back to those little facts that you've kept away, that you've kept tabs on as a just in case, you've immediately lost. And this ideology goes for anyone. It goes for someone you've just met, someone on the street, a stranger. It goes for anyone. What is the point? Because if that's something that you feel the need to resort to, your points are completely invalid. Kind of think what happens in a courtroom or what happens even in a principal's office, and the principal recites what was said in the playground, or the judge is reciting, or the lawyer is reciting what was said in the circumstance. And you're quoted by saying those things that you said, the words that came out of your mouth, the threats that came out of your mouth. Who's going to win? Who's going to win the trial? Who's going to get detention? It's the same ideology. And I'm sorry, but when I look at those people, they look stupid. It makes no sense to me why you would stoop so low in an argument like that. Because when you stoop that low, you have already lost. It is as simple as that. And it's the same with screaming and yelling and physical threats as well. Because it just shows that you're childish. It's just childish. There's no drive to fight for the relationship or fight for the friendship or the topic that you're passionately discussing with the other person. And I always say to people, if you're standing in a heated argument and the person in front of you is barking at you, name-calling you, shaming you, threatening you, saying, come at me, fight me, let's go outside, and you're standing there calm, composed, and not giving into it, who's won? Or better yet, which person would you want to be? It's just embarrassing. And I am aware that in situations like that, it is really difficult to bite your tongue. But I remain composed because I know that karma will do the work for that person. A really good example of silence in a boisterous situation. I remember when I was younger and I'd be carrying on around the house doing my thing, and I would get a little bit too raucous, and my mum would say, Beth, don't do that. Beth, please don't do that. And if I carried on, right before the third time she'd tell me, not a peep would come out of her, just a look. The mum look of, oh shit, I've stood over the line. And it's just silent. And just that silence alone was more scary and more impactful. Is that a word? Impactful? Let's use it. And more impactful than any word she could tell me. So update. Impactful is actually a word. There is a very popular quote floating around on TikTok at the moment, and it goes something on the lines of, my mum once told me, once you are matured, you will realize that silence is more powerful than proving your point. It's very true. Not only does it show confidence, which is what we were talking about in the previous episode, but it also shows that you as a person are not intimidated, you don't need validation from anyone, and you don't feel the need to argue your point just to exist. And you're just wasting your time trying to prove to someone that you're worthy, that you know what you're talking about, that you didn't do a certain thing, that a rumor is being spread about you. When, sorry, what was I talking about before? How you should position yourself around people who do see your potential? You're just wasting your time on people who aren't going to change. I have literally seen a woman scare the shit out of a man by saying the following. And it was crazy to watch, and it proves my point of how little is more. This man, who I will leave unnamed, did something pretty wrong. And instead of this woman getting angry and upset and starting an argument and going, rah, she said the following: "I think it's time for you to leave." Holy cow. The expression on her face scared me. And it was enough. Little is more. And I shit you not, he got up quicker than an airplane. And it just goes to show that silence is so powerful when used correctly. So I just went on a 2-hour coffee break, but I'm back. And whilst I was thinking about this episode, there's also a topic I haven't mentioned yet that I feel the need to express during this episode. I want to talk about emotions. Very, very, very base level conversation. But I feel there are some people who aren't aware of this method. And I've put it into practice for probably just over a year now, this tactic. And I have noticed that a lot more people are listening to me, and a lot more people are kind of taking into account my needs. And it really kind of ties in both ways with boundary setting. So when we think about arguments, it usually stems from anger, jealousy, frustration, all those negative emotions that are really dark and can be very nasty. And I noticed that there was a time in my life where I used to start a lot of arguments because I bottled things up. And I kept tabs, but I never communicated them with people. And that's not fair. Because, first of all, how are you supposed to fix something that you weren't aware of? And second of all, how are you supposed to defend yourself when you weren't informed of it when it comes to the point that an argument sprouts from frustration? Because if you're telling me that your method of communication is bottling things up, keeping tabs, and brushing all the circumstances and problems that you find annoying and you find frustrating or offensive under a mat, it's not going to get resolved until it comes to a point where it's continuously happening, or you've had more than one problem from a different person occur and you explode. Most likely on someone who didn't deserve that explosion. And that is why I'm so religious with the idea of having an open heart. And what I mean by having an open heart is when something hits you like a brick emotionally and you get hurt or you get upset or offended, that's okay, but it's important that we understand how to deal with that properly without hurting anyone else in the process. So when something hits me like that, I feel it, and if I can't let it go and it's still bothering me, I speak up. And it doesn't have to be a speech. It can be very, very decent communication. Usually I just go for, hey, when this thing happened, it hurt because. Very, very simple. And what that does is it gives that person the chance to change, the chance to improve, or even just the knowledge that that thing you don't like. And then it's out there. Which means that there's no bottling up and there's no outburst if it keeps happening, which prevents arguments, and it keeps you composed and it's mature. When we're talking about family, relationships, friendships, even colleagues, it is so, so important that you have decent communication. Because if you have no communication whatsoever, it is going to be an absolute avalanche. Because again, if you don't communicate, the other person doesn't know something's annoying you or upsetting you or making you sad,
that person doesn't get any communication from you. They cannot read your mind. And it goes both ways. It wouldn't be fair if someone came to you after 6 times of you doing something that you didn't even know was wrong and they start barking at you. That's not fair. You didn't know. That's why it's so important to have decent communication, especially in households, especially at work, and especially when you're in a relationship with somebody. And there have definitely been situations where I myself have been called sensitive, I've been called picky, and I've been told that I need to lower my standards. But it's not a matter of being better, it's a matter of knowing. You don't have to be better, you just have to be aware that this specific thing hurts, or this thing happened to me and I need you to know. It is not a matter of sensitivity, it is a matter of being mature. And I have written this in my journal, and this will tie into the next topic I'm about to talk about to wrap up this episode. 1 year ago, I wrote, "Feel emotions non-judgmentally and allow yourself to feel and release them properly." And you know what that's under? Divine femininity and divine masculinity. A person who has that divine energy understands the quality of their absence. And rather than begging for somebody to change and holding on to that possible potential like I was talking about before, someone who has that divine energy will leave. And they're not scared to walk away from a situation that is no longer serving them because they know their worth is valuable. And that is composure. Doing that with no loudness, no barking, just knowing your worth and walking away. And over time, I will make an episode about divine femininity and masculinity as well. They are both very, very powerful tools, and I suggest you look more into them online, learn about them a bit more, and then I'll make an episode and talk about how we can master it and how we can incorporate it into our general life. And overall, that's it for this episode. I'm so glad that you made it this far. I'll be posting a questionnaire up on both my Instagrams. The first one is at the Refinement Challenge, and the second one is elizabeth.rogers_. If you want, you can leave some questions on that questionnaire on a story highlight on both profiles. I'll answer your questions in the next episode. But for now, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Toodles.